Hey guys, Kelade here. With patch 7.25 already out, and with Tomb of Sargeras Raid coming out in the next week and Mythic the week after, let's look at all the various different pieces of gear you can get for all of your slots, and take a look at what bosses are going to drop the best gear for you, and what bosses should you be prioritizing your reroll coins on. But first, in case you guys haven't heard, in the last week, right before the patch came out, Blizzard actually reverted the nerf from Draft of Souls from a 40% nerf to a 15% nerf for Fury Warriors and a 20% nerf for Arms Warriors. Now, what this means is that Draft of Souls isn't instantly garbage anymore. Now, depending on what eye level of Draft of Souls you do have to compare that with other trinkets at the same eye level. So I've gone ahead and I've redone the sims that I've did for tier 19 and tier 20 sims with Draft of Souls. You guys can find links to that all in the description down below. But let's just take a look really quick. So this is tier 19 sims, right? I'm wearing tier 19 gear with a conversion of fates that's 910 and all the different trinkets with the different eye levels next to them. So Draft of Souls does get pretty high up there still, right? It's only losing to our Arcano Crystal with tier 19. With tier 19, Draft of Souls only loses to Arcano Crystal. It's the highest eye level trinket that you have right now is Draft of Souls, which is pretty likely since Mythic Nighthold drops the highest base eye level loot you can possibly get. So very likely that your highest eye level gear is going to be a Draft of Souls. If not, you can still look at this list and see what's better. And of course, my recommendation is always to sim your own character with your own different gear and see what's better. But here's a reference, right? So with tier 19, I want to emphasize that this specific list we're looking at is where tier 19. Right, and you can all go down, you can all look at the bottom. Of course, if you have a lower eye level Draft of Souls, it's still going to be pretty bad, right? An 890 Draft of Souls still loses to pretty much every 880 trinket that's out in the game at the moment. So if you have a high eye level Draft of Souls, and when I say high level, I would consider 910 and above high level, so the mythic version and anything above that. It's very likely that that's still going to be your trinket until the next raid. Now, speaking of next raid, let's look at these sims. Now, these sims are using tier 20. I want to emphasize the difference between these and the last sims, right? So that's why you see all the numbers go up a little bit, even though the trinkets are, the same or even lower eye level than the trinkets from the previous sims. This is using tier 20. And of course, as you guys have seen in the last video, wearing full set tier 20, even if it's the same eye level as your tier 19, will be an increase in DPS for us. So definitely as fast as you guys can, of course, try to get tier 20 if you guys can. But with that being said, the priority changes a little bit. You guys can see Draft of Souls actually makes it back onto the list. You can see for tier 20, Draft of Souls isn't that far off with the helmet and pants. And on this side, you have the helmet and cloak as the legendaries. It gets a little bit higher. But of course, with tier 20, you see the increase in value of haste trinkets or more stat weighted trinkets, right? You see Chaos Talisman getting up here, you see your haste stack 6 getting higher. And a lot of that is because without tier 19, we lose in rage uptime. And losing in rage uptime, like I mentioned in the previous video, is going to drive up the value of haste for us. And that's a common theme that you're going to see in the rest of this video. Haste and mastery are going to be very, very strong stats. And essentially, they're going to be stats that we're going to be aiming for. So I've gone ahead and I'll share this with you guys in the link down below too, but I've gone ahead and made a similar list like I did for Nighthold, where I show you guys the best possible gear you can get from the Tomb of Sargeras Raid. Now, of course, there might be better itemized gear that have better haste and better mastery in a Mythic Plus or, some other type of content, whether it's through PvP or you got some random piece of gear from World Quest or Titan Forge all the way up there. But this is only looking at the gear that is possible to drop from the raid from bosses and seeing what is going to be best for you, right? So I'll go into this in a second, but I want you guys to pay attention to this table right here on the right, which is how many BiS loot drops from the bosses, right? And when you guys go ahead and take a look at this list yourself, you really want to prioritize your reroll coins on the bosses that have really high numbers of BiS loot. Now, the numbers that I have that are highlighted in red just means that there might be one less than the number that's shown here. The reason being is the Desolate Host and Mistress Sassine, they're both dropping gear that is either going to be the tier cloak and their tier pants. And depending on which legendary you choose to wear, whether the cloak or the pants, of course, the number of BiS loot here could go down by 1. That's kind of just like a warning for you guys. But essentially, if you have 2 reroll coins, you're rolling on these 2 bosses, right? If you have 5 reroll coins, you're rolling on these top 5 bosses that have more available BiS loot for your character. Now let's get into the specific loot that you can actually get. We're just going to go down a list and go through every slot that you can have on your character and what loot is going to be the best for you. Now for the helmet, it's almost a no-brainer here because you're going to be wearing a legendary helmet. Now if you don't have the legendary helmet, of course, the non-tier helmet here is actually really good. It has high value haste and really good mastery. And that's going to be the key point here. Any gear that we see that has high haste and really good mastery, or even the other way around, is going to be really good for us. So unfortunately, the tier helm kind of sucks, but luckily you don't need the tier helm. The other tier pieces in this raid are much better, so we're good. So if you have the legendary helmet, you're going to want to wear the legendary helmet, and that's going to be your goal. Now, as for the necklace, there's two necks that can drop from the raid. One has a crit mastery, and one has haste versatility. In regards to versatility and crit, it's still the same as the last patch and the last raid, where versatility is still above crit. So, of course, the item that doesn't have crit is going to be better. So the string of extracted and scissors is going to be the better gear. As far as for shoulders, you're going to be wearing the tier shoulders. Tier shoulders are pretty nice stats. And when I say pretty nice stats now, it's just going to be it doesn't have crit. Or it has very low amounts of crit and really high something else. But in regards to the off piece, if you're not able to get these tier shoulders and these shoulders drop but nobody wants them, you can't pick them up, right? These are the haste mastery shoulders that drop from Garoth. In regards to back, once again, you're gonna go for the tier cloak. If you're not gonna be able to get the tier cloak, these two cloaks are actually both pretty good. Haste mastery cloak and a versatility mastery cloak. So you've got some choices there on your cloak, especially because there's tier cloak, there's legendary cloak, and the off piece of cloak are pretty good choices. As far as for the chest, you're going to, of course, go for a tier chest. The tier chest, this tier is really, really good. Much, much better than tier 19. As you guys can see, instead of crit and versatility that we were getting in tier 19, now we get haste and mastery. A huge improvement on stats. So you want to get your chest ASAP. As you guys saw in the last video, the chest is the single best upgrade you can get in regards to just upgrading one tier piece. So you really want the tier chest piece. We can go over the offsets, but they're not really that great. There's a versatility mastery, but you want the tier chest. In regards to the wrist, unfortunately, there's only one wrist that drops on the raid, so we don't really have a choice, right? If your only way of getting upgrade on wrist is going to be through the raid, then this is going to be it. Unfortunately, it does have the worst stats that's actually possible on a wrist, so it's very likely that you're going to try to get your wrist some other way, right? Farm some mythic pluses that have a good haste and mastery wrist, or, even go back to previous raids and try to get something Titan Forged. Unfortunately, the wrist isn't great, but of course, if you get one that's high eye level enough and nobody else wants it, you can try to pick it up. In regards to the gloves, you're once again going to go for the tier gloves. Now, unfortunately, the tier set bonus on here isn't great. It has versatility and crit. So this is a situation where maybe the legendary bracers for your character could be good, since the bracers we were just talking about had crit and versatility. And the legendary bracers, of course, have really great stats on them. So maybe that could be a viable option for you. You wear the legendary helmet, you wear the legendary bracers, which of course opens up the cloak and the pants option for you. Then you can not wear the gloves and then wear some off pieces that are going to be much better, like this haste and mastery. This one isn't as great because it has crit on it, but these gloves that haste and mastery could be a solution for you, though of course it's not going to be the most optimal setup. The most optimal setup is going to be, the helmet with the cloak or the helmet with the pants. Now, in regards to waist, there's two waists that are available in this raid. Very easy comparison because one has crit on it, so the other one is going to be better. And not only does it have crit, it has crit as the dominant stat, so that really hurts the value of this belt. You're going to want the one that has the versatility and mastery on it. In regards to the legs, you're going to once again go for tier legs. No crit, great. As far as for off pieces for this tier, if you're not able to get tier for some reason, then these pants are really, really great. Really high amount of haste, and then secondary with mastery. In regards to the feat that you can get from this raid, there's two pieces here. One has haste and mastery, one has crit and mastery. I'm sure you guys can tell by now, the one that doesn't have crit is going to be better, right? So these pair of shoes right here. In regards to main hand and offhand, you're of course going to be using your Fury Warrior weapons. That's a no-brainer. And in regards to fingers, now there's 4 rings that can drop from the raid, right? You're going to want 2 of them. There's one that has versatility and mastery. There's one that has haste and mastery. There's one that has crit and haste. And then there's one that has crit and versatility. Now, once again, a very easy option. There's 2 rings that have crit on it. So our best rings are going to be the 2 rings that don't have crit on it. So it's going to be these rings right here, Skill, Band of Servitude, and the Band of Bescinded Truths. In regards to trinkets, that's when you want to go back in the video and refer to the previous trinket list, and then you guys will see the BiS trinkets. Now, actually, depending on how well a girl can progress, I would just get my hands on any trinket that's above DOS that's possible. Now, Cradle and Spectre, they're sitting at the highest, but if you're not able to get those trinkets, the other trinkets in this raid can still do relatively good DPS, right? Especially because Spectre is from Kil'jaeden, and not necessarily everybody's going to be able to kill Kil'jaeden. And of course, to get it to drop this trinket. Now, I didn't include this trinket in my, BiS loot set because it wasn't single target BiS, but, this trinket, Umbra Moonglaves, is really, really strong. It's stronger than Windscar Whetstone, which currently is our best AoE trinket. So these Moonglaives are going to be really, really strong. Anything that has AoE, for Mythic Plus, anything like that, this trinket, when you synergize it with all of our buffs, Enraged, Frothing Berserker, Battlecry, will do crazy amounts of AoE burst. Now, as far as for relics, if you guys have been checking out my streams, you guys have seen I've been trying to farm Battlecry Iron Relics as high eye level as I can in preparation for this raid, because unfortunately, unlike Nighthold, we only have two Battlecry relics in this raid. One is the Fire relic that drops from Fallen Avatar, Battlecry relic, and the other is the Storm relic that drops from Mistress Sazine. If you're not able to get your Scorpion relic or some other Iron relic to Titan Forge all the way up to over 950, then you can go for this Rampage relic that also drops from the raid. But overall, I would say the gear that drops from this raid is pretty well itemized for our character. Now, of course, coming from Nighthold, there were some pieces in Nighthold that wasn't great, especially the tier chest. Luckily, that is not the same here. The tier chest in this raid is really, really good. A lot of the options are really great. Other than the wrist where we only have one option, which isn't a really big deal because if you look at the loot for the other armor specs in this game, like for mail, there's only one bracers either, and I think for leather and cloth, there's only two. So I don't know why. I guess the guys at Tomb of Sargeras just really don't care about wrists, and there just really isn't that many variety in wrist. That's the only thing. Other than wrist, all the other pieces of gear are pretty good. There's a lot of haste and mastery gear, which is great. Now, of course, with the legendary pants, the value of crit isn't as horrible. You always want to compare your gear to, right? Don't just take what I'm saying as, oh, I can only get this one piece of gear. If you get high enough of an eye level of something that has crit and haste, versatility and haste, and mastery and haste, it could still beat in haste and mastery gear. It'll just be hard to, right? Because you're going to require a much higher eye level for it to beat it out. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Good luck to you guys in your Tomb of Sargeras progression, and I hope you guys get all the new legendaries ASAP. Thanks for checking out the video, guys. Feel free to subscribe to see more content. See ya!